Welcome back to the Midgar Press. My name is Jay, and we are continuing to talk about Dragonbane. Um, I was, we're going to break it up today. I was going to go over, hang on, sorry. I was going to go over magic, the first part of magic, because we're going to actually break up magic into 5 different videos. There's a lot to talk about with magic, but I just ran 3 games over the weekend at a convention called Lexicon. And I want to go over 3 things real quick. This won't be a really long video. This will just be 3 simple things I want to cover because I had players question how it works, a couple different times. So I want to go over it in more detail. So let's go back up. We're going to go over prone targets. I say 3, but it's like 4. So, just bear with me. We're going to go over prone targets. We're going to go over critical hits. We're going to go over parrying and dodging. There it is. And the reason I want to go over this in more detail, because I explained it a little bit, I was more or less just going through reading verbatim what was being said or what is, written within the rule book. But I want to go over these in more detail. Okay. So first things first, in combat, if somebody is prone and you're in melee, then you get a boon to the attack and you can add an extra d6. Now, why was this question brought up? Because if you go through combat, where is it? Special attacks, topple. So I had a couple players ask me about the topple because it showed up on their character sheet. So you try to topple an enemy to the ground instead of inflicting damage. This is handled with an opposed roll between your skill level in the weapon you're using and the enemy's evade. If your weapon has the toppling feature, you get a boon. The attack counts as a regular action, but not for the opponent. It cannot be dodged or parried. An effective way of using this special attack is to work together with another person. If you topple the opponent, your friend can attack the prone enemy before they get up. Okay, so let's think about this. Actually, let me pull up some references. Let me do that. Let me pull up some references. All right, I'm back. And I have a pre-generated character that I've created, a young human knight. Down at the bottom left, so that's the top left, we got the young human knight, okay? So I'll scroll down and we're going to use hammers for this example. We'll say he has a mace or a morning star or something along that line. In the bottom left, we have goblins, okay? So on the goblin stat block, we have right here under skills, evade 10. So going back on the right side, we're going to look at the rule again, topple. This is handled with an opposed roll between your skill level and the weapon you're using. So I would roll a 14. You get a boon. The attack counts as an action, but not for the opponent. So the enemy's using evade. I'm using my topple, or I'm sorry, hammers. Now, the question is, and I've seen this before, what happens if you succeed and you roll, because you only need to roll a 14, and the goblin needs to roll a 10. So essentially, if you both succeed, because there's that possibility, most of the time you will succeed, they will fail, or they will succeed and you will fail. but there is a good chance that both of you will succeed. Now, if you both succeed, whoever has the lowest roll, the goblin has to make a evade of 10. So they already have to make a lower roll than you do because you have to get a 14. But understand, in order for the topple to work properly, you have to roll lower than the goblin. Okay. So if we go back up to prone, this will then, so if you are, if this young human knight is successful and the goblin fails, they do no damage, but they are then able to knock the goblin prone. So anybody that is standing within melee combat can then get a boon and deal an extra d6 on their attack, regardless of what the attack is. But it has to be melee, okay? That's the biggest thing. It has to be melee. Some people think that you still get a boon and extra damage during range, which is not true. If we go to ranged, it says nothing about range, or it says nothing about prone targets. The only thing it says is obscure targets, which, it doesn't really give you anything for prone targets, except that if the GM wants to give you a bane, they could. So we're not going to worry about that. That's only for melee combat, okay? Prone targets is only for melee combat. Critical hits. I had multiple player characters roll critical hits over the weekend, and they loved it, but they were really confused about the 3 different options. So I wanted to cover those real quick, just to make sure we have that down, okay? So, option 1, double the damage die by your weapon, and then add a d4. 2, you can immediately make a second attack as a free action. That's important. And then the third option is armor, no effect. You deal damage with negating their armor, which, depending on the situation, could be very important. Basically, it's like you find a gap, a chink in their armor. So, you like stab them in the armpit or something like that. But let's go back to the very first option. You double your damage dice, okay? So if I scroll down on my young human knight, we'll say we're using a Morning Star. It does 2d8. So on a normal attack here, let's do this for y'all. Let's make this simple. All right, so we have a broadsword. Damage is 2d8. And if I scroll up, I have a strength bonus, damage modifier of plus a d4. Okay. So if I swing and hit with my Morning Star, I will do 2d8 plus d4. Now, with the critical hit, it's saying that you will double the damage dice. Okay, so my damage dice for my weapon is 2d8. So I will then add, I can hit the right button, 2d8. Okay, and it's also saying, because it's a critical hit, because this is a monumental moment, you deal an extra d4 of damage. So plus d4. Now, that looks really weird, the way that it's written. So let's simplify this. We're going to do 4d8 plus 2d4. That's pretty awesome. That is pretty awesome. For a critical hit, I mean, what's the max damage that somebody could do on that? 4 times 8, 32, plus another 8. So potentially max damage equals 40 from a morning star. I'm sorry, what? And that's only if you want to use the first option of the critical hits, okay? Like I said, you can immediately perform a second attack against another enemy. That could be very beneficial as well. You know, if you've got multiple monsters or creatures or NPCs in front of you and you just would rather you know, swipe at one, swipe at another, you could do that. You get a second action as or a second attack as a free action. You don't get a lot of free actions in this game, so take it when you can get it. That's all I'm saying. But then again, that third option, you know, if you think about it, so 2d8 plus a d4. That's going to equal for max damage, okay? Max damage. That's going to be what, 16? So that's 20. So you're telling me that armor has no effect and that I can perform a regular attack and it goes straight to the body, like no armor included? Like that's max damage. I'm not saying you're going to get a 20, but the potential of you getting a 20 is there. Okay. So critical hits, I mean, it's important. There's 3 options in melee combat. You figure out which one you want to do. With range combat, you only get 2 options. You get to double your dice or armor has no effect. Okay. You don't get the perform a second attack. Like you can't knock another arrow like that. You can't do it. So you either double your damage, you either double your damage dice, or armor has no effect. Like just like that. Okay, now I want to talk about parrying. Okay, because I had multiple like it's not a hard thing to learn, but it's not also like something you just pick up like first session. You know, because it took me a couple sessions to really figure out how the parrying and the dodging works. Okay. So if you're parrying when you're okay, so we're talking about melee. Okay. It's different for both melee and range. We're talking about melee right now. So melee, when you're parrying an attack in close combat, you can choose to parry the attack when a drawn weapon or shield. Note that you cannot draw a weapon or parry as a free action can only be performed on your turn. You must declare that you are going to parry before the attacker rolls damage. You cannot parry unarmed. It's not like you're a monk and you just catch, you know, something, you know, like catch the blade with your hands. Just like, no, you can't do that yet, at least yet. It is impossible to both parry dodge the same attack. You can parry when prone. When parrying, you roll your skill level for the weapon. Okay, so let's talk about this. If I'm using my let's just go with shield. Okay, we're going with my shield. It says right here, if you have a shield drawn, you can parry with your shield instead of your weapon. There is no skill for shields. Instead, you can use any strength-based melee skill. For example, any of them except knives and staves. Do not use knives and do not use staves to parry with a shield. So let's go up here. Now I have axes with a strength of 8, and I have hammers with a strength of 14. Now, do not say you're going to use your small shield to block or parry. Let me phrase that. You're going to parry, and you're going to use axes as your skill check. No, You use hammers because that's the higher skill check you have. It's better to do it that way. You'll get a better opportunity to parry. Now, as a reminder, durability, okay? If you succeed, if you roll a 14 or less to parry the attack, and let me state this, only certain attacks can be parried. The GM will tell you what can be parried, okay? Don't just think that you can parry anything. The GM will tell you when you can parry. Thank you. So, durability. If I succeed on my small shield, because I'm using my hammer's skill check, okay? If I succeed, let's go down. Ooh, have the mouse in the wrong spot. Durability is 15, okay? It's 15. If the attack that is coming at me as a player deals 15 damage or more. Oh, if it exceeds your weapon's durability. It's not if it succeeds, or it's not if it matches. It has to succeed. If it hits 15, you're fine. It has to hit a 16 or above, which is a small target, but it can still be hit, okay? It can still be hit. So, you know, you successfully parry it. Now, don't forget, parrying is a reaction. As a reaction, you use your turn, your action for that turn. If you have already used your action for the turn, you cannot parry. You cannot parry. You can only parry if you have not used your action. This is why when people, some of my players, when they get like high rolls, like, 1 through 5 on their initiative, I just look at them like, they always like, oh man, like, oh yes, let's go, let's go, let's go. And I think to myself, if I'm the knight, if I'm a fighter or even a hunter, really, and I have, some armor, be up front and trade your initiative so that way you can use your reaction to parry or dodge potentially. Like, there's ways that you could be the protector in the front if the attack that's coming at you misses, then you don't use your action to parry or dodge, but you could use your turn to topple the creature, the NPC, whatever, and then everyone else would then get a boon to the attacks on said creature, NPC. So then you get an extra D6 of damage as well because they're prone. You have to think tactically. There's ways that you could really like just mow through hundreds of enemies, okay? We'll get into tactics in another video, but let's quickly cover dodge real quick. Oh, also, piercing damage can never damage a parrying weapon or shield, and monsters, as a rule, monster attacks cannot be parried otherwise or unless otherwise specified. So remember, the GM will tell you if you can parry. Dodging. Look at Darkwing Duck here. I love this guy. So, dodging. As an alternative to parrying, you can dodge when you hit by an attack. You cannot parry. You can not dodge the same attack. You can do one or the other. You can dodge while prone. You must declare that you are dodging before the opponent rolls damage. So just like with parrying, if you are prone, you can roll over or you can hold your weapon out. Like, it can be done. And then as a reminder, if the GM says, hey, I'm attacking you, they roll to hit, they succeed, you have to remember to say, hey, I'm going to parry this. Hey, I'm going to dodge this before they roll damage. I make sure in my games that I don't roll my to hit or my skill check. Let me rephrase that. I don't roll my skill check and then the damage dice at the same time. I leave an opportunity in the middle so that way in case somebody says, hey, I want to parry or I want to dodge, that way it gives them the opportunity. I want to give my players full opportunity to do what they want. So as a reminder, this is a reaction. If you've already used your turn to attack or do something in the turn, you do not get a chance to parry or dodge. You have to use your action, plain and simple. And then monsters, as a rule, monster attacks can be dodged unless otherwise specified. So pretty much every monster attack can be dodged, okay? Unless the GM says specifically that it cannot be. And like I said, the GM should be telling you. The GM should tell you that, hey, this can be parried. This cannot be parried. This can be dodged. This can't be dodged, okay? They should be telling you this, plain and simple. And that's really just what I wanted to go over real quick. Like I said, I ran 3 games at Lexicon. It's a small convention right down the road from me in Lexington, Kentucky. I live here, Louisville, Kentucky. But it was, right down the road, hour away. A friend of mine, Matthew McLeod, was like, hey, do you want to run some games down there? I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. He ran a couple of games down there too. But yeah, I ran 3 games of Dragonbane. I'll have to do some recordings of those. I actually had 1 TPK, 1 party almost was a TPK, and then 1 party successfully lived. So it was a very interesting turn of events. But yeah, like I said, I just wanted to cover these couple things real quick because I had a lot of questions about them, and when I went over the rules previously, it was just straight blah, 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 the Charlie Brown stuff. I'm going to do a lot more videos like this where they're quicker and they're in more detail. I want to make sure you all understand how certain aspects within the game works. So as always, like the video, drop a comment, share the video with, friends, family, fellow nerds. If you've got, if you've got somebody that is running Dragonbane and they're having problems with the rules, send them my way. Let them watch some of my videos. I am here to help. If you have questions about anything, drop comments below and I'll make a video for it. I promise, I'll make a video for it. So until the next time, you live on and game on.